What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the absolute worst makeup I tried in 2022. This includes both drugstore and high-end makeup. Some of these things you have seen me talk about already in different reviews throughout the year, while other things I didn't talk about at all because it was just so bad. I didn't even feel like making a video about it. So we're going to talk about it today. Let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. All right, guys, so I actually have a bin of makeup right here, and every single time throughout the year that I tried something that was awful, I would just throw it right here in this bin to use for this video later on. There may be a few exceptions, things that I got rid of when I did a few declutters this year, but most of the time I remembered to just put them in this little bin. So let's just dig through, and I'm just gonna pull out products randomly and talk about them quickly. So the first one, I don't know, this one might be a little bit polarizing. Some of you may actually love this product depending on your skin type, but it was awful for me. And this is the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Balm Powder. So I really like the idea of this. I watched several videos talking about it, and so many people really seemed to love this product and said that it just made their skin look so beautiful, so seamless and smooth. That was absolutely not my experience at all. This has a very greasy kind of oily texture, which when I first felt it, I was like, okay, good, because my skin is dry and I definitely like products that are a little bit more on the dewy or oily side. But this is one of those oily products that you put it on your skin and then it instantly kind of turns very dry and very powdery. And this product highlights every wrinkle, every pore, every dry patch on my face. Even if I start with a very moisturized face and I don't realize that the dry patch is there, I tried applying it with a brush, a sponge, my fingers. Nothing worked, and this just kind of slides around on top of my skin. It never completely goes into it, and I felt like it wore off throughout the day. So this product was a really big fail for me. Another product from Sephora, or actually collection of products that I was really disappointed in, were these Simi Haze products. So these I purchased as soon as they came out, before there were any reviews out there, just because I thought, you know, it's a new brand, I want to try it out, it looks interesting, and I didn't really wait to see any reviews or anything. I think there were a few reviews on the website, but they were like those paid ones or the ones where they get sent the product for free, and of course they're going to say glowing things about them. So the few reviews that were out there were really good. And these products were not cheap. I ended up paying over $100 for just these 3 products, and then I got them home and I was kind of disappointed in the packaging. I mean, obviously I saw what it looked like online, but online they actually show the products open. So for example, the lip gloss looked like this, and it was a close-up of the wand, but when you actually look at it, it just looks like 2 marshmallows kind of stacked on top of each other. And if you bought this in multiple colors, you would have no clue without looking at the label on the bottom what color it even was. There's a lipstick too that's just kind of like a mini version of it. And then there's a mascara too that looks like just the most basic black mascara tube. There's nothing special about it. And these products are so expensive. The mascara was $30. The blurring lipstick was $36. And then this all over face tint was $35. So these are luxury prices, and I just felt like when I got these products home that they didn't look luxury. They didn't really feel luxury to me at all. And then when I tried the products themselves, they were just very mediocre. I don't feel like they were terrible, terrible products, except for the mascara. I really didn't like this one. I felt like it didn't really do much for my lashes, and it claims to be a tubing formula, but it didn't remove like a tubing formula. So I just was really very unimpressed with this. The lipstick and the all over tint were okay, but not for what I paid for them, not at all. I just felt like for these prices, I could buy something from Chanel or YSL or something that just looks and feels and performs way more luxury than these. So I just felt like these were a big letdown, and I haven't really heard that many people say great things about them overall. So I think if you're gonna spend this kind of money, just get something from an actual luxury brand. Next up, from Essence, they launched the Lash Princess liners, and when I saw these, I was so excited because I love Lash Princess mascara, but when I got these home, I was pretty disappointed with them, and I know part of this could just be like a personal preference thing because I like a really small, skinny liquid liner because I have hooded eyes and I don't want to draw like a really thick stripe of liner. But with these, I felt like that was all that I got because they are very thick, very chunky. I did like that they had a brush tip, but for me, it was just hard to use, and I felt like no matter how I tried to get a really thin line, I couldn't because of the size of the brush tip. And also, I just thought that these faded really quickly. I didn't feel like they lasted throughout the day at all. Even the waterproof one, which was, I think, this one, it just did not last on me. So I felt like these were a big flop and definitely a letdown because I love the Lash Princess mascara so much. Next up, from Milani, they had released the Gilded Flora palette, and when I first saw this palette, I thought it looked so beautiful. I loved the bright color story. It looked very spring-like, and it was just beautiful. And I had been hoping that they'd change their formula because I'm not a big fan of their new formula that they've had, the gilded one. It's just very powdery and not the same as their eyeshadows were in the past. And even though this one swatched beautifully, when I went to put it on my eyes, I felt like the look that I got was very lackluster. I used some of the deeper pinks and they just came out on my eyes like a really faded looking, very subtle pink, and the golden shimmer that I had applied to my lids, it looked like a beautiful duochrome in a swatch, but when I actually went to put it on, it was more of just a wash of sparkle than anything else. And my eye look faded so much throughout the day. By a few hours in, it hardly looked like I was wearing eyeshadow at all. So I do hope that Milani will continue to upgrade their formula. I think the color stories and the concepts for their palettes are so beautiful and definitely above most of the other drugstore brands. So if they could just get that formula to be a little bit more long lasting and a little more pigmented, they could be like at the top of the drugstore eyeshadows for me. So those were a bit of a disappointment. And then another drugstore eyeshadow that really was awful are these Maybelline shadow blocks. I don't even think I talked about these on my channel. I ordered them as soon as they hit the Amazon website. I got them home and I was immediately disappointed, and I just didn't even feel like making a video about them because they were awful. So I think they were kind of trying to dupe the Kaja bento stacks. So they come in these little chunky blocks and they have 3 different colors. These are square, the Kaja ones are round. But when you look at the actual Kaja ones, you open it up and the eyeshadow takes up most of the size of the compact. They have a little mirror in here, which is really nice. And the formula is good on these, and I feel like there's no wasted space. They're very compact, even though they're a little chunky. I feel like they really used the space that they had well. And then when you look at these shadow blocks, you open it up, and there's like this tiny little shadow in the middle of this really huge square. I think they definitely could have either shrunken this packaging or made the eyeshadow just a little bit bigger. So that's the first negative. The second negative is that it has no mirror, so they really cheaped out on that. The packaging is so flimsy. This basically feels like Barbie plastic. If you ever had like accessories for your Barbie, I'm thinking specifically of like a suitcase that my Barbie had to take in her car, and it was like this really light plastic that almost feels weightless, and it's almost like bendable. It's just the cheapest possible plastic they could have ever made. It feels like this weighs almost nothing. And then the formula. The formula is not good. Some were better than others, but I wouldn't say that any of them were spectacular. Most of them were sheer. They just kind of blended out to nothing. They didn't really show up well. I think Maybelline has a lot of work to do on their eyeshadow formula. I know that their Nudes of New York palette that they came out with a few years ago was a really good start, and I was hoping that they would kind of continue with that, and really they haven't come up with much. except for these, and I felt like these were a total fail. Next up, we have the L'Oreal Glow Paradise Liquid Blushes. So these, initially, I was very excited about. I loved the whole concept of a liquid blush. I have so many favorites from the drugstore, and these just fell flat for me. They have kind of a gel-like serum texture, which initially was fine. When I actually went to apply it, I felt like they went on really nicely, they dried down, but unfortunately, they just didn't really show up on my skin. I had to keep layering and layering, and they still just wouldn't get any deeper, and I felt like they were sticking more to my fingers and staining my fingers than they were to my cheeks, which was a bit of a letdown. And that stain that was on my fingers stayed there for the entire day, even after multiple hand washings. So I just felt like if they weren't going to show up on me, and I'm pretty fair-skinned, who are they going to show up on? I know that these were marketed to be more of a sheer formula, but there's sheer and then there's almost non-existent, and that's kind of what these were. Another product I tried this year was the Pacifica Kind Tint, and I was excited about this one too because I love a good tinted moisturizer or a skin tint. But unfortunately, this one had almost no coverage. It looked really patchy when I put it on my skin, and it almost like made it look more dry because it settled into my fine lines, pores, wrinkles. It wouldn't stick to my nose, and it also pilled up like crazy. I just really didn't like anything about this product at all. I'd love to hear if it worked for you guys. I know obviously there are different skin types out there and different preferences, but for me, I just felt like it could have had more coverage and it could have just sat a little bit better on the skin and maybe sunk in a little bit more. I felt like it just kind of floated on top and it really wore off throughout the day very quickly. Let's talk about some products from Makeup Revolution. I know I talked about some of the good things that they've come out with this year, like their Ultra Cream Bronzer that I really love and some of their blushes, but these next few products were kind of like, what the heck were they thinking? So this first one was their Cloud Burst Primer. This was from their XX Revolution line, and I purchased this off of their website. And it had these glowy pearls that were basically supposed to burst and create a glowy look on your skin. And I was like, that's such a cool concept. I loved the packaging. But all it did when you pumped it out was burst them into like little chunky pieces of the pearl that sat on top of your skin, like a big hunk of glitter. And the rest of the primer was just a clear serum and didn't do anything. So when I put it on, it just looked like nothing. And I had a couple pieces of pearl stuck to my face and that was it. So for me, I thought the concept was cool. The execution was just so stupid. Like it really didn't even make any sense at all. I actually threw that away, and I normally don't throw out makeup because I can gift it to somebody who will use it. But with that one, I was like, who would use this? Who would want these little pieces of pearl stuck on their face? Like it didn't even make sense. Another product from Revolution that I threw in the garbage because I didn't want anybody else to use it were their serum blushes. These were also from XX Revolution. And I thought that they actually came in beautiful packaging. They were heavy glass bottles, like a dropper style bottle. And the colors that they came in were so beautiful too. And I was really excited for these. And then I actually went to use them and my cheeks started burning instantly. And I'm like, what is going on? I read the ingredient list and it turns out that they had cinnamon and ginger essential oils in the formula that basically are supposed to create a warming sensation, and it was completely intentional. I didn't actually read that in the description. I just saw them and I was like, ooh, liquid blushes, cool, let me buy them. And yeah, why would you put cinnamon oil in a product that's gonna go on your skin? I have no idea, but my cheeks were so irritated. I took it off immediately and I got rid of them. So that was another what were they thinking kind of a product. And I noticed that both those and that glowy primer that I just talked about are no longer on their website, and it hasn't even been a year since they launched. So I think that's pretty telling. Another product I have in my little bin here is the Jones Road WTF What the Foundation. So this got so much hype back in, I think it was the springtime when it launched, and right away I could say I don't love the packaging. This jar that it comes in is just very messy, especially because this foundation has a tendency to kind of separate, and there's sometimes oil sitting on top and it could leak over the sides of the jar. The product itself is so sticky and so oily. When I first saw it, I thought that this looked really good. I'm pretty much their target demographic. I have very dry skin. I'm over 40. So the idea of a skin tint that kind of feels like a night cream or something really, really appealed to me. But unfortunately, when I apply it to my skin, it has like this sort of oily, glycerin-like feel to it that really didn't want to dry down like a night cream. It also has a really strong kind of herbal scent to it, which I wasn't too crazy about either. And then when I applied it to my skin, it just had extremely light coverage, which is fine because it is a skin tint, but I was really more concerned with how it felt on my skin throughout the day. I honestly just couldn't wait to wash it off, and it did sort of wear off throughout the day too. It wasn't the longest lasting foundation in the world. So I think WTF is definitely the right name for this foundation. I would just switch the F for foundation to another word that starts with F. Next up, let's talk about Lorac. Lorac broke my heart this year. They were releasing a new unzipped palette, and I was so over the moon excited because I love their original unzipped. It's one of my favorite palettes of all time and has been for so many years. So when I saw that they were coming out with unzipped Amore, I was like, oh, I was in heaven. I purchased it immediately as soon as I saw it on the Ulta website. However, when I got it home, I was quickly let down when I saw that this is not the same formula as the other unzipped palettes at all, not even close. The formula of this palette is very stiff. The shimmers especially were not creamy or smooth like the original. They were flaky and glittery. They were hard to pick up. In the video where I talked about this palette, after I showed the swatches of this one, I showed the swatches of the original, and it was so much more velvety, and the shimmer shades just look so much richer and have more depth and so smooth. This was such a big letdown, and I feel like a lot of people agreed because it has like 2 stars on the Ulta website. So I hope that Lorac will take that feedback to heart and maybe come out with another unzipped palette in that old formula, because that one is amazing. Also, BH Cosmetics had launched this year underneath the new umbrella of Makeup Revolution, who purchased them earlier in the year, or maybe it was in 2021, I can't remember, but I saw that they were coming out with new palettes, and I think everybody's big question was, did Revolution keep the same BH Cosmetics formula? And at least for this first run of products that they had come out with, I could say, no, this doesn't feel like BH at all. I have an entire video on this series of palettes, and I was just so let down when I tried these shadows. I just felt like they were not pigmented at all. They didn't have that same rich feel that BH Cosmetics has, especially when it comes to the shimmer shades. These were just so dull and lackluster, and I was really not impressed with them at all. They kind of felt like Makeup Revolution shadows to me. So I'm hoping that maybe this was just a fluke, and in the future they will start using that BH Cosmetics formula that we know and love. But this was really a sad launch for me, and I just felt like BH Cosmetics truly was gone. Not to pick on Makeup Revolution, but I have a couple more things to talk about. The first one was these highlight and contour sticks. So they had sent me these actually in PR, and they rarely send me PR, but these ended up coming in the mail. And this one has a contour on one side and it has a highlight on the other. And this contour shade was kind of like, are they joking? It's almost the same color as my skin. And when you go to blend it out, it really just kind of blends into my skin and disappears. It really was just kind of one step deeper than the highlight shade on the other side. So I felt like that was really odd. I could definitely get on board with a lighter contour for light skin. I think a lot of times contour shades are too dark, but it has to be able to actually contour and create that shadow on your face. Not to mention that this was very warm toned like a bronzer, and contour shades really in theory should be cooler toned and a little bit more grayish. So there was that one, and then they also had this contour compact, and this was also in the light shade, and this is like, you're gonna think this is a joke because look at the depth of the colors in this compact. It was so dark for me. I couldn't believe this when I saw, like, that's the bronzer, this is supposed to be the contour, and then this is the highlight. The highlight is fine, but these 2 shades right here for my skin tone, what? And then they give you this one, which is also, I think this was the light shade as well. The contour on here hardly shows up, and then the contour like in this compact is just so dark. I felt like I couldn't even use this on my skin because the color range is just so off from what it normally would be for somebody with light skin. I also recently tried these new lipsticks from L'Oreal. These are the Color Riche Intense Matte Lipsticks, and I have nothing bad to say about the packaging. I think they're very elevated, very high end, and then when you open them up, They have like a really slim bullet, kind of similar to like an hourglass style lipstick. So I felt like these looked really beautiful. But when I went to actually put them on my lips, they are so dry. And again, this might just be personal preference. A lot of the reviews on the Ulta website are very positive for these. I think they have 4.1 or 4.2 stars. So people do like them. I know most of the reviews, again, were sent the product for free, so I don't know, but they do have a nice weightless feel. But I felt like I put this on my lips and maybe like a few minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes later, I felt like my lips were drying out. Like I could actually feel them kind of getting tight. And then I looked in the mirror and they looked all wrinkly and kind of puckered. And part of the reason could be that these have hyaluronic acid in the formula. Hyaluronic acid is a humectant which draws water from its environment. So if you are in a place like Florida where it's warm and there's humidity in the air, it's fine. But if you live in a really super, super dry climate like where I am right now, where it's wintertime and there's no moisture in the air at all, that hyaluronic acid, instead of drawing the water from the air and drawing it into your skin, it's going to take it from your skin and draw it out. So normally if you're in a dry climate, they recommend, like if you're using a hyaluronic acid product on your face, they say to put some occlusive moisturizer on top of it, something that is not going to allow that hyaluronic acid to come out of your skin. And I suppose you could mimic that by putting a lip balm on top of these and kind of solving the problem that way. But as soon as you do that, you're taking away the long wearing aspects of this lipstick and you're making it transfer more like a lip gloss or a tinted lip balm or a really moisturizing lipstick. So at that point, I feel like I would just rather buy a formula like that than buy something like this and then have to add a lip balm on top. It just seems like an extra unnecessary step. And at that point, this is not going to be a more long wearing lipstick anymore. So I don't know. These just weren't my favorite. Not to mention they do have that kind of like floral smell that all the L'Oreal lipsticks have. When I smell it, it's very nostalgic for me. It reminds me of like the 80s and 90s when I was first getting into makeup. But these days, if I have to smell that on my lips for more than just a few minutes, I start to get a headache from it. So that's another reason I just normally don't wear products from L'Oreal. But anyway, guys, I would love to hear your thoughts on these products down below. What did you think of all of these this year? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Hopefully I didn't offend anybody and hopefully you all realize that this is just for fun. And of course, just because I don't like something doesn't mean you all don't like it. So I'd just love to hear your take down in the comments below. Also, I want to thank you so much for sitting down and taking time and watching this video. I really appreciate it so much. If you have some extra time and you'd like to check out some more videos, I'll put my Vlogmas playlist right up here because I have been posting daily so far this whole month of December. So definitely check those out. And if you're new here, I hope you'll consider hitting the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much. And I'll see you all in my next video. Take care. Bye.